I'm going to be issuing you a warning for a PE minor infraction for an illegal activation and not maintaining game state. Have you received a penalty like this before? If you do not agree with the ruling or penalty, you may try to appeal.
That is what you guys don't want to be hearing over your next major tournament experience. Hey guys, this is
Tom
Box. Welcome to MST.TV. Got my hair cut now. How do I look? Hopefully I look alright. Some say I'm aging backwards, but regardless, thank you. First of all, this video is about helping you guys so that you guys don't get your PE minors, don't get your PE majors, and get basically warnings and game losses for the upcoming event coming this weekend, the extravaganza. It might be the last extravaganza of the current format. Hopefully there's a ban list coming out soon, or maybe by the time I release this video, the ban list is already out. Who knows? But anyways, lots of stuff to maintain. This whole video is mainly about game state maintenance, things that you guys have to maintain to prevent yourself from taking a warning or taking a loss. And cards that are the #1 culprit, or the cards that are the top culprit, I would say, it would be Pot of Prosperity. This card, although it has recently been released, has been actually leading into a lot of games that people shouldn't have been giving up on, have been leading into a couple of illegal game states, and improper game states that just basically can no longer be repaired. There's a lot of stuff going on here, so that's #1 card I'm going to be talking about. Then there's also stuff like the new virtual world trap. I want to talk about that just fairly briefly, just to remind you guys so that no illegal moves occur. Then we're going to look into something you guys wanted me to talk about, Ghost Bell versus Drytron. You guys wanted me to talk about that. I want to cover briefly, and finally we'll close out with a little bit of Nibiru for the main parts of the segment. Then we're going to jump into Twitter. If you guys want to follow me on Twitter, go ahead and check it out. Link is down in the description. But I asked you guys some time ago, ask me a ruling question. I'm going to be answering it here on this video. If you guys want to ask me a ruling question there, every now and then I'll post a tweet saying, hey, ask me a ruling question. You might make it onto this video, but even if you don't make it onto this video, I probably still would have answered it on Twitter for you guys. All right, and without further ado, well, hopefully you guys can smash that thumbs up button, hit the like, hit the subscribe, ding notification bell, and let's begin. Pot of Prosperity. I'm going to drill this into your heads so that this does not come up in the upcoming event this weekend. So first thing you should know is half damage. Oh my god. I have seen so many scoops due to the fact that, oh, I put out 8,000 damage, you're dead. And then they agree with it, and then they move on. Dude, you're at half damage. You need to do 16,000 damage. And why is this so important? Well, if they're going to go for the OTK, some people overcommit their board, and therefore, if you counter the board, you can win the game. But instead, you scooped, and now you've lost the game, and there's no way to coming back because you forgot that half damage was occurring. And you just have to read the cards. So I'm going to remind you guys, half damage, half damage,
half damage,
effect and battle damage are halved if your opponent activates a card. All right, that's out of the way. And definitely don't want to scoop to these games. And aside from that, we are going to move on to the second part of the effect that is super important, that has caused probably a lot of illegal game states, a lot of DC minor. Is it draw card minor? Yeah, I think it would be considered as a draw card minor, but I think it's also probably procedural error. It's probably got double whammy on this one, which is you cannot draw cards by card effects the turn you activated this card. This applies to the entire turn. It's not for the rest of the turn, it is the entire turn. Who's doing this? Virtual World and Drytron players, most commonly, I would say. Because Virtual World, they play this card, 100% guarantee it. I've seen it in basically every single Virtual World list I've seen post Blazing Vortex. If they have the card, they will play it because that extra reach, digging that Lulu is super consistent. Great. But keep in mind that Stardust Charge Warrior, Coral Dragon, and Arthes will not be able to draw cards. And if you use those cards before you activated the Pot of Prosperity, then that Pot of Prosperity is illegal, and that you're going to be revealing a lot of cards that, you know, you shouldn't really be able to see. Depending on the order you do it, it could cause an irreparable game state, which leads to your game loss, and that's a big problem. Or if you didn't catch your opponent do it, they basically got to play an illegal game state. That's why I'm saying this format has a lot of stuff to maintain, and this is one of them. And make sure you do not draw cards by card effects. What about Drytrons? Drytrons, I believe Delta is the card that lets them draw, so be very careful. Do your due diligence. Both players have to maintain game state, and sometimes your opponent won't remind you, or you play too quickly. and you know, penalizing people. It's really up to the investigation and the judge team to kind of figure that out. So please do not misplay this card. Please do not illegally play this card. And half damage, guys, half damage. Okay, Virtual World Gate Xuanwu is the second card I want to talk about. Key note here is there's 3 things that you have to keep in mind. First thing is the battle phase effect. During the battle phase, if you control another Virtual World Gate card, you can target one face-up monster on the field and change its battle position. Key note here, it has to be the battle phase for one thing. And the second thing to remember is you have to control another Virtual World Gate card. Whether it be a Chuche or a Qinglong on the field, you have to have another one. I've seen just people activating this card as a standalone, getting themselves, I guess, a free turn to play, surviving the battle. Yeah, that's not exactly how this card works. Just remember, it has to be, again, the battle phase as well. Very important note there. Okay, the next part here is probably just as important. So during your main phase, you can banish this card from your graveyard, and then you can target one Virtual World monster in your graveyard and special summon it, but negate its effects. Then send one card from your hand to the graveyard. Okay, so here's the thing. During your main phase is when you can activate this. You cannot banish this as a defensive maneuver during your opponent's turn. I've seen it happen. In fact, I still see some people doing the whole banish Chuche during your opponent's turn, just so that you can meet the Chuche requirement that's face up on your side of the field to shuffle 2 back just to do this particular maneuver. Yet you can't do that. It's during your main phases when you can activate this card from the graveyard to do that special summon. But one key thing that people keep on forgetting is to send the card from hand to the graveyard. This is not exactly rocket science. Qinglong, people don't forget. I haven't seen, like, most people forget about the Qinglong where they, you know, they go ahead and like, oh, add a card to your hand, and then they're like, okay, I'll send this one right away. I think it's because the motion is so similar of adding and sending a card from hand, but the motion of reviving a card by banishing, it doesn't feel the same to them because they're manipulating the graveyard rather than going from, you know, something to the hand. Some people do forget, and they will get an illegal +1. You don't want to be in that situation, because if you play with the card and end up creating a game state where you use those cards, reverting the game state is not exactly an option in many cases, especially once it gets to the point where, you know, cards get shuffled, and that basically turns into a game loss, and you want to avoid that at all cost. And so there's 3 things to maintain. Remember, the battle position change, there's 2 things you have to know. Battle phase, and you have to control another gate. So 2 things, 2 conditions that have to be met. And then for the revival effect, just remember it has to be during your main phase, some from grave, and you have to send a card. Just remember to send the card, because the sending card part is probably the part that's going to screw people over the most. All right? And yeah, you can't use this as a chump block. Okay, ruling number 3, Drytron in the hand versus Ghost Bell. And you guys asked me this last week. You guys asked me this in Twitter. I'm going to answer this right now. Simply put, Ghost Bell cannot really negate a Drytron monster in the hand unless it's Drytron Gamma, because Gamma summons out from the graveyard. And if you look at the card text of a Drytron monster, you can special summon this card from your hand or graveyard in defense position. You guys are probably asking, oh, it says or graveyard in there. It has graveyard text in there. But it's hand or graveyard. So if it's coming from the hand, it is not coming from the graveyard. And therefore, that entire graveyard text can be grayed out if it's actually activating the hand. And if you look past the semicolon part, basically looking at the resolution of the card text, if that graveyard line is grayed out because you're activating from the hand, and you look at the rest of the card text and it does not involve the graveyard, then you can't really use that Ghost Bell. It's kind of really that simple. To kind of check out for the guaranteed. And if you activate the Drytron monster from the graveyard, that means you can special summon this card from your graveyard. Well, since the graveyard text is technically active in this case, then obviously you can use Ghost Bell because the Drytron monster is trying to move itself out of the graveyard. Does that make sense to you guys? Just look past the semicolon to see whether or not the GY is basically guaranteed, or not, rather than guaranteed, potentially there in the card text, and you guys can figure out from there. But if there's a guaranteed that it is not coming from the graveyard, therefore you can probably ignore that part. Comparable scenario here in terms of context of guaranteed versus not guaranteed is Ash Blossom Joyspring versus co-linked Nightmare Monster. If a Nightmare Monster is not co-linked, you can't throw an Ash on it because it's guaranteed not to be able to draw. Whereas if the Nightmare Monster is co-linked, then it has the potential to draw. It's not guaranteed that it won't draw. Therefore, you can actually throw an Ash on it because it's already met its condition to get that draw card effect, and therefore that part of the card text is live. Even though the card text will always have, you can draw a card in there, but it doesn't mean that it is, valid or active within the resolution of this particular card. Does that make sense, guys? Hopefully I'm clearing this one out for you guys. And yeah, that's the whole Drytron versus Ghost Bell. Just a little ruling quickie for Nibiru. Don't tribute face down monsters. That's it. That's all I have to remind you guys of. Before we jump into the Twitter questions, if you guys enjoyed this video so far, just give me a like. I really appreciate that, just so that I know you guys are enjoying the content. If you guys want to see more stuff from MST.TV, of course, don't forget to hit the subscribe, ding notification bell as well, especially with post-ban list stuff coming up, especially when the ban list comes out. That's going to be pretty awesome as well. And thank you Patreons out there for making life a little bit easier on this side of things, because honestly it's very, very difficult this year and the past year. So you guys made all the difference. And for those of you guys who are looking for a merch drop coming, and I have my, of course, Rose in the Stardust Mystic Era. So this is based off of my 2017 design, and seems to be one of the most popular designs out there, and you guys really enjoyed it. So giving it a revamped version for 2021, and this one features Black Rose and Stardust. To be honest, this one looks amazing. This is not a commission work. This is 100% Tombox OG. I drew the Stardust, I had the Black Rose, and I just put them together and put it onto the mat in a way that I think is stylistic and very pretty. You guys will see it live very soon. I'm waiting for my copy to come in just so I can show you guys. And this is a limited time drop and limited edition drop, 100 copies only, and we'll get your hands on them soon. All right, guys, thank you for your support. Hopefully you guys enjoy the product as well. And if I see you with the mat, of course I will sign the mat for you guys when I see you in person once this whole thing is lifted. Now let's jump on to Twitter side. Twitter time. L asks, Mr. Box, I hope I'm not too late. I have a question. If you negate an already boosted Dragoon with, say, Fleur de Lis, would it keep the extra attack, or would it go back down to 3k? It will go back down to 3k. Attack modifiers that only apply to itself. Once the monster effect gets negated, the application of that effect that boosted them will also go away as well. That's just the knowledge I know so far. And if, say, you boosted multiple monsters, including yourself, then if the monster gets negated, then it would keep its attack boost, because it's an applied effect now that's already lingering. So if Fleur de Lis attacked and it boosts itself, because it boosts all Dogmatica monsters, it would keep the attack in that sense. But yeah, it depends on if you're applying to yourself or applying to multiple monsters. Cool question. Turquoise Moss asks, if I fart on my opponent's cards, do I get a game loss? This is not a ruling question. This is a policy question. And would you get a game loss? No, you would not get a game loss. You would get something much worse. You get disqualified. So, you know what? We're going to bring up the policy text here. Now, if you have, lack good hygiene and negatively impact the event, cool. That would be a UC minor. That would be a warning, but you're not falling under this category. You're kind of related to this category. It's kind of like a blend of two things, but you're not getting a game loss, because game loss UC major is mainly for people that are behaving poorly, and they have poor behavior, throwing chairs, won't sign a match slip, really not affecting the other person as much, like at least not physically. But when you get into the point where you're assaulting someone, so this is what we're talking about. This is UC severe disqualification. If a person physically or verbally assaults or threatens another player, or another person rather, then you would fall into this category. So you're not really physically hurting someone, you are biologically hurting someone. Oh my god. Yeah, I think that's much worse. Like, no one wants your fecal matter on their sleeves, and man, they're gonna have to like imagine not washing hands and getting like, ugh, just no. Yeah, this is probably falling under disqualification. So yeah. Well, I'm glad you asked. Brett Pro Angel, Lancia versus Shen. Lancia would overrule the Shenshen, the card effect that would prevent the movement of a card into an incorrect location, versus Shenshen, which would modify the movement of a card from a graveyard. The Lancia would prevail. This is from Imperial Iron Wall versus Macrocosmos. Imperial Iron Wall would always supersede the Macrocosmos in that sense, because one is keeping the game state where it's supposed to go, or preventing the game state from moving into like a weird location, versus, you know, changing location of cards. Next, I don't know how to say your name. Guwas asks, oh, it's Gus. Tall Gus 69 asks, I have 4 back row and I have 4 tokens on the field. Can my opponent activate and resolve evenly match? Yes, they can. Okay, I'm going to go in this scenario assuming that they are activating it going straight into battle phase, so they only have control of one card, which is the evenly matched. If that was the case, you would banish every single card except for the tokens, because tokens cannot be banished face down, so you're stuck banishing all 4 of your back row. Yeah, it really sucks. You don't want tokens on the field when someone activates evenly matched. It is the worst thing possible. Next, we have Jägerfox. Ask, what happens to VFD that has used its effect to change all monsters to a certain attribute, then Layer of Darkness is activated? Do all monsters become dark attribute if they weren't already? And also the other way around, if Layer is on the field and then VFD activates. Oh, good question. In fact, both cases I believe have a different result. If VFD has already been activated and changed, say, everything to light, and you activate a Layer of Darkness being the last thing that applied, will change everything into dark. This one is kind of like, you know, the last thing that applies goes through. This is from Precedent Ruling of DNA Surgery. If you have multiple DNA surgery, what is the type of the monster on the field? It is the last one that actually activated. So if Lair was already on the field and used VFD, then you change the typing of all the monsters to the other type. Yeah, so that's how I believe it will work. I know that the Lair of Darkness is continuous, but then again, all of the effects of DNA Surgery are also continuous. So there's that. And then, Anthony Zero asks, why doesn't Swap Frog proc Atlantean effects? It's because Swap Frog isn't... Okay, Swap Frog is a summon condition. Summoning conditions are technically... if you send something away for a summoning condition, that is not exactly a cost that you're paying. You're just fulfilling the summoning condition of the card. And because Swap Frog does not activate, unlike an Atlantean, say, not Atlantean, but Mermail Megalo. Megalo has the activate the effect to throw 2 cards away. If you use Swap Frog to special summon itself, you send and summon immediately. It's kind of like all part of the same deal. Does not start a chain, is not an activated effect, so you're not really paying a cost. Does that make any sense? That's really all I got for this video, guys. If you guys enjoyed this video, smash that thumbs up button. If you guys want to see more stuff from MST.TV, or if you guys want to follow me on Twitter, you guys can do that. Every now and then, I'm going to ask you guys a question. What is a ruling question that you guys want me to answer? And if you get lucky, you guys might even make it into this video. If not, I'll still answer your question on Twitter. That's all I got for this video, guys. Smash the thumbs up button, hit subscribe, ding notification bell. If you guys want to really help support this channel, check out the Patreon link down in the description. You guys know what you're getting, you Patreons. You guys don't leave just yet. Something awesome is coming your way, and make sure your addresses are up to date, guys. That's all I'm saying, and I'll see you guys in the next one.